basically they get right down to it. Does the teaching profession have its focus on the wrong things? The focus we wish to center on is the ability to teach. That is what we want to pay for. That is what we're looking for. That's what you're looking for. Throw out all your taught concepts and get back to what you want your bureaucracy to do. You want it to teach. You want up at the top, you want the university to teach your teachers how to teach. You want your teachers to be able to teach your children. So how do we start over again and get the teachers instead of degrees? They say, let's start with the testing unit. We've talked about that in the chapter on bureaucracies. We need to test the teachers by testing the results of that teaching. We know that is against the rules of the teacher union. We have tenure and all that. Well, you can have a teachers union, you can have tenure and all that, but we're paying the bill. And as they say over and over again, the union is a fantastic concept for the game players, and not, it's kind of a division thing. The unions did a fantastic thing by bringing the work level into a reasonable amount, but then they made a mistake. They're a bureaucracy. What would you expect? Okay, we have tenure in the schools, and we have absolutely no reason to have that, and we have tremendous amount of income in the schools, and we have no reason for that unless you can teach. Okay, so are we going to go on with these intelligent games or finally say we've had enough? Don't you as an employer have the right to ask for proof of real proof of results by those who get your pay? Yes, you do have that right. Don't you as an employer have the right to fire those in the bureaucracy who don't produce? Yes, you do have that right. Don't you have the right to fire those who hired the ones who couldn't produce? The top people, you understand? Yes, you have that right also. That's yours. That means cutting off the head. This is what we're talking about when we are explaining how to control a bureaucracy. We need to ban unions from stopping your right to determine who to hire and who to fire. Tenure needs to be ended. The teacher needs to stand on their own 2 feet. Good teachers will find great joy in the new system, and their pay will go up. Poor teachers will have to find another kind of work. So tell me right here and right now before we even go on, what's wrong with that? What's right with having tenure and having really rotten teachers in your school system that you can't get rid of? Come on. You hire, you fire, and you say, okay, we're going to strike and we're going to, go ahead, we'll find other teachers. We can do that. I mean, if that's what we have to do, we can do that. Once you decide, see, it's like all things that you just don't get. You just don't get. Women vote. Well, what happened? Because the men sure didn't want the women to vote. What happened? They had a plan, and they got together, and next thing you know, women have the right to vote. Children no longer work. Children they're not slave labor. Why? Because the families got together and said, no, we're not going to have any of that. Those are big things, but there are little things too. McDonald's no longer does certain things because the people said, no, we're not going to have that. Not just McDonald's. There are stores that no longer do certain things. Look, there's a drugstore right now that no longer sells tobacco. Why? Because you said no. We're going to... We said no. And of course, they use it. They use it to do other things. I mean, they looked at it and said, "Hey, you don't suppose we could trick them into?" So you get rid of advertisement, and you get rid of all this stuff, and you do some actual research. And now, because you've used the concepts that were given in controlling a bureaucracy, the first thing you do is you get rid of the tenure system, and you're going to find a way to test these teachers and these students that's real. And of course everybody's going to scream and holler, but not the good teachers. The good teachers aren't going to scream and holler. The real teachers won't scream and holler. You find some really fantastic teachers, they're going to get paid, and they'll probably get paid to teach teachers. Wouldn't that be a concept? So, the philosophical concept of dealing with a bureaucracy was cute, but here is the real deal. This is the real deal. You're going to get rid of some people, and you're going to keep some people, and you're going to do it by testing. So then they say, I suppose we probably better get into the testing unit and make sure that everybody understands what's going on then, because you just don't want people going in there and saying, I don't like you, so you're fired. That has nothing to do with what they're talking about. They're saying if the person can teach you, you need to keep them. If the person can't teach, you need to get rid of them. It's that simple. So they say the testing unit is responsible in a bureaucracy now. A testing unit is responsible for the creation of tests and testing of key personnel within the bureaucracy. We must determine that what is claimed to have been accomplished is in fact accomplished. The People's Trust News could also be called in and be used here to accomplish the same goal in the area where testing isn't applicable. In other words, people going in and researching, they may find out stuff that people are hiding, teachers are hiding, and the administration's hiding. Or the testing unit has to get serious about the tests, and get them valid. But the thing is that the tests have to be valid. So they say in either case, the goal is to determine whether a teacher can teach and that a student has the best chance to learn. Let's get the concept straight. We have to imagine that we've already determined exactly what we want taught. And they say that'll come later. We know that our children need to know and have what we know what our children need to know. Now, this is after you figure out what it is you want to teach. We know what our children need to know and have given our expectations to the bureaucratic school system. There's no preconceived requirements or methods demanded. The bureaucracy needs to have its own creativity. As we suggested, we need to leave the internal workings of a bureaucracy alone. Given the results wanted and test an investigation to see what's claimed to be true is truly given, leave the internal workings to the head of the bureaucracy. So we have given the school bureaucracy our expectation and now need to test the results of their first year's effort after you give them the things that you want. The test unit will test each student to determine what they have learned. There will be no intelligence games here. There will be no cheating, no memorizing, no teacher doing his or her own testing, and no prejudice built into the testing. What do you mean no prejudice? Oh man, you take any student who's not I gotta be careful here. You take a person who isn't a normal United States person, like somebody who's from another country or just doesn't really hasn't been raised here and they just come in. There's prejudice in the tests that they can't get around because they. Let me see if I can get it across to you. As a mechanic, I had to take tests to show that I knew what it was that I was doing. I worked only on foreign cars. The tests were given on American cars. I had no idea what the words meant. They called these different things that I was being tested on by different names. And I had no idea what in the world they were talking about. I had to go and study American car names for parts is all. I had to learn the names of the parts because I had no idea what they were asking. Did I know how to do it? Nah, absolutely. No problem. I could do anything on American cars, but I didn't know what the names were, so they say, okay, you have to go get a blah, 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 and, well, what is that? And then they say, well, a rotor. Oh, a rotor. Oh, okay, well, I know what that is. So the concept is that you might have somebody from another country that comes in and they don't know what your words mean. But they're IQ is up in the 180s. And I mean, they'll muddle through and learn it, and but why? Why are you allowing the prejudice to be thrown into the testing? See, that's the thing. And you have things like the inability to see quick enough to pass those tests. You have the inability to you're dyslexic, or you can't read very well, and so you don't have the words that you need, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of prejudice built into those testing, and they need to get that out. And that's what they're saying. No cheating, no memorization, no teachers doing his or her own testing, and no prejudice built into the testing. The testing must come into two parts. The first will be the testing before the test. Whew, what? This is the concept. Before a student is brought into the testing room for the normal written test on any subject, he or she is brought before a testing counselor. The counselor explains what the test is and how it will be given. The students will be given sample questions and be allowed to answer them as if he were answering a real test, but verbally, you understand now. The counselor then checks the answer one-on-one with the student and shows him or her whether he or she made the mistake if they did. This pre-test counseling can be done a month or more before the written test is given. What are we doing here? This is the problem with testing as we see it. If you think and are exactly like the teacher, you will get a good grade. If your social or racial background is different, you will miss little references built in the test. If you think in a different way, there could be two or more right answers. If your ability to recall is not so good, you will get lower grade. If you can't read as well or have reading deficiency, real or not, from lack of teaching perhaps, but anyway, could be real, you'll be slower or miss something or get lower grades. Many students can't handle the stress of a test well and get blocked, and thus lower grades, and on it goes. Now go back to our suggested testing method. The testing counselor is there to help the student be ready for the written part of the test. The counselor will reduce the stress as much as possible right here, as he or she does one-on-one with the student, and is there to help the student take the test. That is one of the requirements of the tester. The tester then counselor, that tester, he's also a tester or she's a tester, is talking to the student one-on-one about the questions on the test. That puts an end to low grades due to the inability to read, follow written instructions, write, cultural differences, and so on. Why? Because the counselors, could be the same race, the same person that, you understand what I'm saying? They could be let's just say they're Mexican. And the counselor is Mexican because the student's Mexican. And the counselor says, now this test is going to say blah, 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 what that means in our language. And and he says, and the student is, oh, wow, this is getting easier and easier because I now understand what they're asking for. So the student gets a chance to ask questions and explain why he answered the way he did, and that puts him into low grades because the person thinks different. The counselor gets a chance to take the student in any direction by conversation and thereby determine if he truly knows the subject he's being tested on. Then, with the counseling finished, the student will take the test when it's given, and that covers the second part. We have changed the way tests are given. First, tests are statewide. Statewide, that means that any bias put in by any teacher is gone. You have tests that are designed by the parent in that state, and boy, let me tell you, does that why did they say that, and why are they doing that? There's a key area here that we have to get taken care of, obviously, and that is just taken care of there, and they quietly go over it. The tests are designed by parents in the state. Parents are many races and many cultural differences and so on and so forth. And they're there, and they're saying, no, you can't use that word, or if you can, you got to explain what the word means. Oh, okay, And that's the first thing. And the second thing is, what are you teaching those kids? And they go into what they're teaching the kids later on, so we won't cover it here. But the parent gets a chance to say, no, we're not going to teach them this. We're going to teach them what's important, and that's what we're going to teach. And if they have the final say, you get the game players and politicians and religious people and everybody else right out of the school system. And that's where they belong, out of the school system. We don't, we're not paying somebody to give our students their view of life. We're paying them to learn what life is all about and have a understanding of what it is going to be expected of them and how to handle it. So the parents are designed by the parents in the state, and they cover the things the parent feels are needed to get along in society in a reasonable manner. Each student gets the same test in that state, and each state's test could be a little different because each state is a little different. And there we said over and over and over again, let them be different. Let the state be different. Let people get to the state they like. And then let the state teach the children what the state wants to teach children. It shouldn't be all the same. We're not all equal. It's about choices. It's always about choices. So they're getting it back to the parents in charge. It's like the jury's in charge, the parents in charge, and that's the way it should be. And we need the parents to say, what do we want to teach our kids? Why is anybody else telling our teaching bureaucracy what to teach our children? Absolutely insane to allow anybody else other than the parents to tell you what they want you to know. Who's telling you? When you get to the point where you understand what it is that they're teaching the children now, you'll understand immediately why it's so critical to have the parents be in charge, and that's what they're allowing here. So, okay, the parents are in charge, state by state. As we said, the game players want to be in here, and we do not want them in here. Keep them out of your schools. Watch them. People's Trust News. Keep them out of the schools. People's Trust News. See, again, that $1 a week, People's Trust News is going to watch and make darn sure that these people, game players, are not in the schools. They're going to watch. They're going to investigate. Some student's going to come up and say, hey, you're an investigator for People's Trust News, aren't you? Yep. Well, you know what my teacher did? You understand? There's no place to do that now. There's no place. There's no place. We have nobody that's paying attention to what we want. And that'll change. Oh, I know it's going to be $1 a week. Oh, my gosh. But, pay it and get the things you need. See, the reason that nobody's doing anything is because nobody knows what's going on. That's one of the biggest reasons. And I defy you to show us or anybody any time when a whole bunch of people knew something was going on that wasn't right, that it didn't get changed. You're never taught that. You're never told that. You don't pay any attention to it. But I defy you to find a place other than politics, and that's only so far, you understand, where, in politics the game is played so well that so far nobody's been able to get in there and get it fixed. Do you want to? Sure. Have you done it yet? Absolutely not. But how about other places? Women's right to vote, children working, some of your, high fructose corn syrup and food, that's going away, It's just because the people are starting to recognize how horribly terrible it is. Okay. Then that's the first part. People's Trust News, watch those teachers, watch the tests they're given, the parents make the test state by state. Next, the test is given by an unbiased tester who has the ability to recognize whether a student knows that which is being tested for or not. To hire a tester for any other reason would be an intelligence game, wouldn't it? What'd they say? They said test your testers and make darn sure they're testing, or they have the ability to know whether the student that they talk to knows the data and knows the information or not, because that's what you're hiring them for. Okay. And then they say the third difference is that the student is tested on more than a short-term and mid-term memory. The student must know how to use the material he has learned. He's going to talk to a real living human being who isn't threatening and is there to help. Can you see that every student will give away whether he or she knows the subject or not? When you talk to somebody like that that's trying to help you, a tester, and they're, what do you think about this, and how come you answered this way, and whatever it is that they have to do to get the test results that they're testing for, that tester basically would appear to the student to be there to help, and he is. But he or she will find out whether that student is learning what they're supposed to be learning, and then move them to where they will learn better. The testing becomes an important tool rather than a threat or a poor motivator that it is now. So what did they say? They said the tester is, before the written test, you got this guy or girl woman or man who's asking you questions and finding out, well, why did you say it that way? That's not going to fly on the test. If you answer that way, it'll be checked wrong. Why did you answer that way? And they say, well, I did that. I saw it this way. Oh, okay. Well, then you just didn't see it the same way. When you get done with that kind of a thing, you spent some time testing the student. So they say, so we have relaxed one-on-one. We're there one-on-one. We're conversational. We're doing auditory testing, which is kind of a cue to where we failed. What does that mean? That means auditory testing. There are a lot of different ways to learn, and the visual and then written is not the only two. There's also the hearing and the speaking, what it is that you know. Those two are never tested in schools, hardly ever. Sure you do. You say, Johnny, stand up in front of the whole class so they can laugh at you and tell us what you know about, come on. We need to have Johnny, who's terrified, if you will, terrified of tests and so on, just talking to somebody that he can talk to. You got a counselor who you can talk to. I mean, if you can't talk to the counselor, then fire them, because they're not counseling. They're not doing what you want. You get somebody that the student can talk to, and they say, well, this is why I did this. And, oh, okay, well, that's not going to fly on the written test, so maybe, if you said it this way, it'd be better. And, and the student is, oh, wow, this person's here to help me. And by the time you get done talking to them, which could be months, you know whether they know anything or not. And if they don't know anything, you can mark it down. They don't know anything. They need to go back and get this and this and this, and they need to go back, and be retaught. And can you see what's coming? I can. Okay. And I'll mention it when we get there. So both things, both the written test and the verbal test, are used to evaluate the student, and the results are put on a report. Okay, so the thing that you have to understand is the results then are used to tailor the student's classes in an attempt to improve his or her ability to learn. Second, the information will be used to evaluate any teaching technique to determine its value in relation to other techniques. Third is to determine who can teach. Bingo. Well, that's where I knew they were going. So what are we saying? You find out with that kind of examination what your student knows. That's good. Second thing you do is you can tailor the student back, move them back, or move them forward. You have to remember that. You're way too smart to be taught at this level. You got to get them, make full use of their mental ability. Oh, we can't do that. We have to keep everybody together because somebody will look like a fool. Tough. Looking like a fool is part of karma. Looking like a fool as decisions are being made. People that make people look like fools, that's their life. They're making the decision to choose that route. we're not going to go there. What we are saying is, you now know where the student is. The student needs more, or is way too knowledgeable for where he is, and you move him accordingly. And second, the information will be used statewide, because if you have a school where people are way higher in their tests all over the place, you're going to say somebody's using a different technique to teach, and we need to know what it is and pass it on, pass it around. Okay, good. And then the third thing is, the thing teachers are dead set against if they can't teach, is who can teach. What does that mean? You're going to find out that there are teachers that can teach. You're going to find out that regardless of any technique, or not the technique, but the things that you're using to teach a person, you're going to find out there are teachers that know how to teach these kids, and they're learning how to pass the tests, both verbally and written test. And that's the third thing. And that's the thing that you look at and say, okay, now we evaluate the teachers, and you 10 can't teach, get out, and you 10 can teach, so you're in, and you can teach fantastically, and you're raised. You got a raise, and you got a tremendous position. And have you ever considered teaching teachers? So then they say, if you understand the hidden concept and the suggestion on testing, or don't need to know more, then there's levels given here, and you're in a level 3, and we're moving to a level 4. So they're saying as we go on, and I'll tell you when we get to level 3 again. But they say we're going to give you the reasoning behind it in more technical terms because we're into level 4. They say for those who need more information or the basis of this testing procedure, we go back to the 3 uses of the testing procedure. First, we're going to use the results to tailor the students' classes and counseling to get better results on the tests. As we said, we know what we want the student to learn. The bureaucracy must give us that learning. That means the learning attitude created by a learning atmosphere with a true teacher. No excuses, no preconceived ideas or places or buildings or anything else. No preconceived anything. Test and find out who's teaching and how they're teaching and why are your teaching methods better than ours, and change. And as you continue to do that, you get to be better and better teachers. And one of the things that we just don't get, and it's so obvious when it's pointed out to you, and one of the things they say like they say all the time, no excuses, no preconceived ideas, and for sure, no keeping of any part of this school old way just because it was there. That means we can tailor our classes. That means we can move a student around inside the school system. That means there are no grades for students, no A, B's, C's, D's, no 1st through 12. Well, they're taking those out of there? Competitions for the monkey, and perhaps more importantly for the monkey's parents. Boo. There's no need for grades. Grades are just a poor substitute for the true motivation that was supposed to be given by the teacher and the administration. And we're talking about, ABCs at this point. The other grades, 1st through 12, are nothing but a means of forcing all into the mold of the perceived normal. The school system is supposed to be there to teach, not play games. If a student is eager to learn and has the ability, why is he held back? If he's having difficulty, real difficulty, why does he move forward anyway? The school system is there to teach. Let them do their job. Allow the student to be evaluated and placed where he'll best learn. And they say, what a concept. And will the cool kid call the kid that's a little slow names? Will the slow kid have to live with the stigma until they can prove themselves as an adult? They will, as long as the adult parents supporting that Dominion-type thinking continue to prod their kids, What they say? They said, if you're a parent and you let your son or daughter pick on the slow kid, yeah, it's not right, but, You make choices, and one of the things they do all the time is they don't say you will not do that because that's wrong. They don't say that. They just said you're making choices, and you know. So